Thank you, Hope. Okay, I'm going to jump right into it. I have a lot of material to cover. This is going to be pretty basic because I could actually do 4 or 5 episodes of this, but we'll get right into it. So some of the things that you need to know before you begin would be there are pros and cons to the Swedish records. So some of the pros are you can follow your ancestors every single year within reason. You know, you will hit brick walls with certain people, but you can follow them every single year from birth to death and birth to emigration. The Swedes, they kept great records, and the main thing is you do not need to know how to speak Swedish to trace your ancestors, which was one of the reasons why it took me so long to get into ArkivDigital. The only con is you need to know where to start looking. The Swedish alphabet has 3 additional letters. It's the A with the circle over it, the A with the 2 dots, and the O with the 2 dots. And they follow Z in the alphabet, which is very important when you're looking up Swedish words. So for locations, I'm going to show you how it's set up. In the United States, we have, it goes by country, then state, county, and then city. In Sweden, according to the ArkivDigital arrangement, they have, it goes first by Sweden, and then county, then parish or city, and then location, which includes a farm, a street, or some other designation to tell you where to start looking. So Sweden has 25 counties, and we're going to take a look at Östergötland here. So Östergötland in 1890 had about 160 parishes. We're going to take a look at Vanga, which is located right about there in the middle. And if you go onto the Family Search Wiki, they have the place names. And the place names, all they are is, it directs you to a location inside the parish. It's not really a street name or anything. It's just, it could be a farm name. It could just, it's anywhere that just designates a piece of land. So basically, you need to know what parish or place or farm your ancestor lived in. You really need a starting point. Some of the examples of where to find the place names are the birth, marriage, death records, obituaries, relatives, online family trees, find a grave. Sometimes you could find it in the population of Sweden 1860 to 1930 index, and also ship's manifest. So when you open up the ArkivDigital homepage, where you find all the locations are, if you click on the image database, it'll take you to this page here, and over on the right hand side you'll see the counties. Now we'll scroll down to Östergötland, and you click on that. It'll open up you to the Östergötland page, which has some information, but also on the right hand side underneath Östergötland, it opens up all the parishes. So we scroll down further, and I will click on the Vanga link, and it opens me up to the Vanga page. And then if you go down a little bit, you'll see all the volumes that are available for viewing. So for instance, we'll take a look at the migration records. You click on that, and it'll bring you to all the migration records that are available. You'll see it in the middle column, all the dates. And say we were looking for somebody who migrated in the late 1870s to the mid 1890s, we would find it in this volume here, and you click on that icon there to open it up in the ArkivDigital viewer. Names are another thing that you need to know when doing research. It's very complicated. Surnames, the patronymic naming was predominant. All it means is that children were known as the son or the daughter of a certain man. It was used exclusively until 1860, and then between 1860 and 1901, it was not mandatory to use the patronymic namings. 1901, they passed a law to use a permanent surname, and women normally retain their own surname after marriage, which is very helpful when you're searching for women. So let's take a look at some patronymic naming. So before 1860, if Nils Anderson had a son, Johan, he would be called Johan Nilsson, which just basically means that he's Johan, son of Nils. If he had a daughter, it would be Kirsten, Nils' daughter. Now, if Johan had a son, he would be called Magnus Johansson. And if he had a daughter, she would be Maria, Johan's daughter. Now, between 1860 and 1901, it could have gone either way. If Magnus had a son, he could have been called Eric Magnusson, the patronymic naming, or he could have taken his father's surname, Eric Johansson. Same thing with his daughter. She could have either been called Anna Magnus' daughter or Anna Johansson. And then after 1901, usually they took the father's surname, in this case, Eric Johansson and Anna Johansson. More surnames would be soldiers. Once they were contracted, they were given or they took a surname. And it was meant to be something meaningful, like bullet, sharp, or guard. Sometimes it was a surname that was location-based, like he was from Ekby. And it was done to avoid confusion. You could have had potentially 15, 20, 30 Andersons in one platoon, so it was done to avoid confusion, and they usually kept their soldier names well after they left the service. Some people took names that were nature names. It could be either like the first half or the second half of the name. In this case, Hedborg is a combination of two nature names, moor and burg or castle. Some people took only one-word surnames, such as Blom. Priests often adopted Greek or Roman names. What they did was they appended a Greek or Roman name with Anders or IUS at the end of it. And the nobility had special noble names, for instance, von Rosen. Illegitimate children is a potential problem, and I myself have run into a brick wall because of an illegitimate child. What they did was the father's name was listed on the birth records, Okta or Okend, and we'll take a look at a record here. It's actually my 3 times great-grandfather, and we'll get in a little bit closer, and you'll notice that Johann Peter was listed as unknown as a surname. His father was listed as unknown, but they gave his mother's name. And what they did with the surnames for these illegitimate children were sometimes they give a metronymic name, such as Anna's son or Anna's daughter. They could have taken the mother's surname. They could have taken the father's surname. They could have taken the patronymic, or they could have adopted a whole new surname, such as their stepfather's name. So in this case, Johann Peter, I found him later on in the records, and he ended up taking the surname Isaacson. Now, I have no idea if Isaac was his stepfather, his real father, or what. So that's my brick wall there. Given names. You don't want to get hung up on spelling. It's just like here in the US. But the names are interchangeable, such as Michael and Mike. They will write them either way on records. Sometimes you'll find one record that says Michael. Sometimes you'll find one that says Mike. So don't get hung up on that. For instance, Peter had 7 different ways of writing Peter. Maria had a little bit more. And I found some statistics that Cecilia had almost 50 different variations. Now, when they moved to the US, they would drop the double S's in the son names, such as Anderson. They would just drop one of the S's. The V's would often change to W's. In this case, Svensson would change to Swanson. The E would also change to an A. The letters A with the dots, A with the circle, and A with the 2 dots also became either A, O, or U, not necessarily, an A didn't necessarily become, the A with the dots didn't necessarily become an A, and so on. But in this case, Manson became Munson. The Swedish pronunciation of the Swedish last name there is actually Monson. C's would often precede the K now when they moved here. As you can see, the IK now changed to ICK, and the EK would change to ECK. The combinations of TJ, KJ, LJ, and GJ were often dropped and or changed. And what they did a lot of times was they Americanized their names. For instance, Johann would change to John, Maria would change to Marie or Mary, and Nils sometimes changed to Nelson. And sometimes difficult names got changed completely. Now I'm going to give you a brief run through on some of the records in ArkivDigital. It's the premier source for Swedish records. It's a subscription site, obviously. So what is ArkivDigital? Well, ArkivDigital is just a repository for the Swedish records. The Swedish records are known as the church books because they were kept by the priests. They weren't kept by a government. They can go back into the 1600s, and we're going to go over the most common ones tonight, which would be the household examinations, which are very similar to our census. We're going to go over the birth and baptisms, the banns and marriages, the deaths and burials, and the moving in, moving out records, or the migration, and also the estate inventories. But there are many others that are worth exploring. So I'm going to go pretty deep into this household examination because these are the best genealogical ones here because they were updated yearly. They're very similar to our census. What they did was these were in 5-year increments, the pages, and they would do a household examination and a communion every year, and they would mark it in the book. So this is why I say you can follow your ancestors every year. And it's easy to distinguish your ancestor because they wrote down their full birth dates next to their names. And like I said, they are a genealogical goldmine. So I'm going to take a look at the headings on these records. You'll see that they list the person's name, their position, state, occupation, and trade, along with their nationality and handicap. Next, they give you the birth with their year, day, and month, and the place that they were born. They will give you the married date and whether or not they were a widower or a widow. Also, they had a checkbox if they had smallpox. The next example is this is the moved in. So what they did was they would write down the parish in the county that they moved from, and they would give the page number in the household examination book. If it was in this parish, and if it was from a different parish, they would just write down the parish name, but they would include the year, the month, and most likely the day. They would also give the moving in certificate number, and if they died, they would give the death date. This is for if they were read or not. I'm not really sure exactly what these all mean, so we'll move on. This is the important one. This is where they attended the examination and received Holy Communion. As you can see, they have the years examined in the middle, 1871 through 1875, and they had 2 boxes underneath each year. One of them was for if they attended the examination, and one of them was if they had taken Holy Communion that year. In the next column, they would give remarks on their character, and then if they had constituted a duty of conscience. In the last couple columns here, they would, if they moved out of the parish, they would provide the parish that they moved to, and in some cases they would provide a different country, such as America. They would provide the year, month, and day, and then they would provide the number in the moving out certificate that they're listed. So you can find all the headings transcribed in ArkivDigital. If you go to the home page, if you click on Swedish genealogy, it'll take you to this page here. And if you scroll down, you can see that they give you examples. Now we're going to click on the household examination record example that I just went through, and it will transcribe all the Swedish to English that I had just done. So over here, it'll give you the Swedish names, and then right next to it, it'll give you the English names. So these household exam pages are from before the late 1800s. They're a little more primitive. They have a little less information, but some of the great things that they provide you are the name, the place name, the year or place they emigrated from, whether or not they attended the examination and received Holy Communion, death dates, and the year and the place that they moved to. The birth and baptism records for the late 1800s provide a wealth of information too. You'll notice that they provide the birth date along with a baptism date, parents' occupations and nationalities. It will also list the godparents, which we know we should follow for our genealogical records. And also witnesses could be related too, but it also points to the page number in the household examination booklets. Everything seems to coincide with each other. Before the late 1800s, it's a little more primitive. They would list things like the name, the birth date, the baptism date, parents with their occupations, godparents, and the witnesses. However, it's still a wealth of information. The banns and the marriages from the late 1800s is set up pretty neat. It's got a lot of the same information as the birth. You could see that it also has the ban and the wedding date, the occupations, birth years, which number of the marriage, also pointing to the household examination booklet, whether or not they had nobility, if there was guardian consent, some sort of assignment of inheritance, and some special remarks. And the marriage records are usually performed in the bride's parish, which is very helpful when looking up the records. Again, this is before the late 1800s, the marriage. It's a little more primitive, however, it still has a lot of information, one of them being the mourning gift or the dowry that was provided to the bride's parents. The death and funeral records of the late 1800s provides information such as the date of death, the burial, where they were residing, their age, cause of death, the number of the household examination book that they were in, and where they died, besides the parish, which could have been in a hospital, a prison, or somewhere outside of Sweden. I have seen some that listed America. And the ones before the late 1800s, again, a little more primitive, but they still provide a lot of information that's useful. The moving in and out records are great because they provide the moving in and out date. They provide exactly where they were from or where they were going. They would provide the parish and the country, which is very helpful to point you in the next direction so you can follow these people, like I said, from birth till either death or from when they moved out of the country. It would also list the number of people in the family if they weren't listed separately. Sometimes you will see a birth date with a year on there, but it also will point to sometimes the corresponding household examination booklet. And again, the ones before the late 1800s are a little more primitive, but they still have great information. The estate inventories. These ones you will find, these are almost like a will book or a probate because they would provide the name, the date of the death, it would list the heirs, and sometimes the residents you'll find would be, again, in another country. I have seen them listing their heirs are living in America. And it will give you an inventory of the estate and the names of the appraisers. There are many other types of useful records available on ArkivDigital. They're definitely worth checking out. I do not have enough time to go through these. I really wish I did because they are such a great wealth of information. So now when you're looking through these books, I want to point you to some finding aids that will help you with your research. Some great websites or groups that I'll show you, and I do have links to these inside the handout. So the Family Search Wiki is going to be your best friend when doing Swedish research because it will give you information such as the Sweden history. It'll give you help finding the counties, parishes, and the place names. It will give you translation of common Swedish words, also different types of occupations. There's many gazetteers on there that will help you. And there's another page on there with a list to helpful websites. And it's just great to help with your research. Facebook. If you're into Swedish research, join the Swedish American Genealogical Group. They will translate documents if you post them. Just be courteous. Don't provide a whole page and say, please translate this for me. Post something and be specific. ArkivDigital, their help page that I just showed you a little while ago will help you to understand the records. And there's another great website called the Swedish Genealogy Guide, which has some tutorials, and it also has dictionaries, which I will show in a little bit. Legacy Family Tree Webinars is also another great place. Kathy Mead, who is the representative for ArkivDigital in America, she had made I think 3 or 4 different tutorial videos on how to use ArkivDigital and get the most out of it. There are 2 books that I recommend highly for Swedish research. One of them is Your Swedish Roots. It was published in 2012. It's available on Amazon. And Cradled in Sweden, the 2002 version, is available on Amazon. However, if you go on to Family Search in their books, they have a 1972 version, which is downloadable. You just have to click until you find it. The first couple, you'll click on it and say you're not authorized, but if you just go down, I think it was 4 or 5, and you'll get the download. Maps are another great resource. Say you're looking at a record and you see a place name such as Tättinge, which is located in the parish of Vanga in the county of Östergötland. You can go on to this website here. I'm not even going to bother saying the name because I'll butcher it, but they have historical maps. I ended up finding this great historical map of Vanga in the 1870s. And if you zoom in here, you could see that I had found Tättinge. And what I did was I went onto Google Maps and I found it. And then if you click satellite view, it will show you exactly where your relatives lived at one point in time. And you could also zoom in and see the beautiful landscape. Now, when you're translating these documents, because I guarantee none of us speak Swedish, it's very helpful to know some of these things. Google Translate is helpful with some words. They had a 1906 spelling reform, which changed some of the way the words were pronounced and said, and some of them just got changed completely. But you can use Google Translate and it'll help you. The Family Search Wiki has pages with the most commonly used words. And like I said, occupations, there's also a PDF that you could download, which is very helpful. And again, the Swedish American Genealogy Group on Facebook, they will provide translation of documents. Just like I said, be specific. The Swedish Genealogy Guide has 2 dictionaries on there. One of them is the 1788 Swedish American Dictionary and the Swedish Historical Dictionary Database, or the SHDD. That's located on the Swedish Genealogy Guide right here under dictionaries. There's 2 different ones. If you click on the 1788 Swedish American Dictionary, it pops up a photograph of the page, which you can see it translates everything right to English. The Historical Dictionary Database, you can search on it. Right here, if you enter words, you could put the beginning of words and use the Swedish characters, or you can put middle of words, end of words, and you hit search, and it'll populate it and help you find the words that you're looking for. So now I'm going to go into a quick case study and show you how easy it is to find some of these records. So I have Nils Johan Munson, who's my 2 times great-grandfather. I have his death certificate from New Britain, Connecticut. in 1902. The information that I have here gives his full name, Nils Johan Munson, and it also lists his birthday as the 17th of August, 1848. Down a little bit further, it gives his birthplace, which, like I said, you really need a starting point. You need the county, something. Otherwise, you're just going to be searching records. The parish is the best, is the best starting point. It also lists his father's name as Magnus Munson, and his mother's name is unknown. So what I do is I go to the home page on ArkivDigital. I click on the image database. And again, over on the right-hand side, I click on the counties, scroll down till I find Östergötland. It opens up the Östergötland page. Then over on the right, you'll see that it opened up the parish. The parish is underneath Östergötland. And I find Vanga, and I click on that. And down a little bit on the page, it gives you all the volumes that are available for Vanga. Some of them have more, some of them have less of a variety. But I'm going to click on the birth and baptism records because I know Nils' birth date. Here's the birth and baptism records. I'm looking for 1848, so I go to this book here, and you'll see it's the 1847 to 1861. You click on this icon here, and it will open up the book, and it looks just like this. These are pictures. These are not scans, and they're in full color, and they're just great to read. You can zoom in, you can copy these, you can download them, everything. There's a navigation bar up at the top that'll help you get around. You can use this to go more pages. You can download everything. You can go full screen, rotate them, whatever you want to do. So in the first couple pages, it gives you like an index, and this here means the birth and baptism books. So they're located on pages 1 to 97. These are the marriage and banns, and these are the deaths and burials. So we're looking for the birth. So when you click on the top of the page there, you'll see image and page. The image is the number, the picture number that they gave it when they took the pictures. So image 1 would be the front cover. You really want to go by page numbers if you're looking for a certain page. Most of the time, the page numbers correspond with the exact page number in the book. Sometimes they don't. So I find Vanga in 1848, and it says birth in Vanga, the year of 1848. And you'll see I found Nils Johan. He was born on the 17th of August, 1848. He was baptized on the 20th to parents Magnus Munson and Britta Stina Johansdotter. And over here it lists Britta's age, which looks like 25. And over here it says that he's from Eskmålen. So now what is Eskmålen? Eskmålen is the place name, and if you go to the family search wiki over here for Vanga, you look underneath the place names, and sometimes you have to do you have to hunt a little bit, but you can actually find how to spell these names, which is very important when writing them down or doing your citations. So now I want to take a look at the household examination record for the year that Nils was born, which are located under here, under the parish meeting and parish records. There's 2 volumes for 1844 to 1849. And I know that number 13 is the one I'm looking for. Sometimes you'll have to look in both of them. But it opens up, and you'll go to the front of the book where they have the index for the place names. Now, if you zoom in, you can see I found Eskmålen here, which is located on page 63. So again, I go up to the top of the page and you'll see image 72, page 63. If you click on that, it will bring you to the household examination record for that place. Now, if you zoom in, you'll see that I found Nils Johan, and again, it lists his birth date, 48, and then the 17 over the 8. You'll have to get used to seeing the dates like this. It just means that the 48 is the year, the 17 is the day, and the 8 is the month, so the 17th of August. It also lists his parents' names. And you'll see here in this column, that means that she came from Turstorp in 1845. And they were also married on the 9th of November in 1845. There's also a second part to the book. So we'll look over here and we'll go back to the parish books and see if we can find Turstorp, because otherwise they would have listed a parish. Could be a parish, but so you just have to search sometimes to find out what Turstorp is. So I opened up the books and I ended up finding Turstorp in one of those two volumes. So I know Turstorp is a place name, not a parish or a county. So I want to go look at their marriage records. So they were married on the 11th of September in 1845. The marriage records are located here, and I'm going to open up the volume here that goes between 1776 and 1846. The second page in, or the third page in, you'll get to know some of the Swedish words, but this one here starts with a V means the marriages, and they're located on pages 609 to 615, and it goes from years 1843 to 1846. And when I go to page 613 up, using the drop down, you'll see that the page number doesn't coincide with the page number in the book. It's, like I said, it's not uncommon, but most of the time you'll find that they do match. So now we're looking at the marriage and banns for Vanga for the year 1845, and underneath the heading for November, we find the marriage record for Magnus Munson and Britta Stina Johansdotter, and they were married on the 9th. It also it also says where they were both living. Magnus was living in Eskmålen, and Britta was living in Turstorp. It gives both of their ages as 22, and the 1 is the number of their the marriage that this is. So now we go back to the household examination booklets to see some of the other information that was on there. I noticed that Nils had a sister, Anna Stina, who was born on the 16th of November in 1846. And if you go across the page to the other side of the book, you'll see that there's a date there, and it's underneath the heading of death. So she died on the 4th of December, 1846, which is less than a month after she was born. So I want to go find her death record. So I go back to the Vanga page. Underneath the death and funeral records, I go for 1846, and it's in this volume here. I open it up. It's the same one we were looking at before. So the deaths are listed here between 1777 and 1847 on pages 379 to 607. And I found it on page 607 or 629 in the book. And it says on the top, death and burials in Vanga for the year 1846. I scroll down, I find December, and I found Anna Stina from Eskmålen. She died on the 4th of December. It says daughter of Magnus Munson and Britta Stina Johansdotter, who was born on the 16th of November, 1846. Now over here, it gives her cause of death, which is Torsk, and it lists that she was single. Now, if I go to the Swedish historical database, I type in Torsk. Now, I could have broken it up, but sometimes you'll get lucky by just typing the whole word in there. And you click search, and it came up with 2 results, one of them being in the category of sickness or medical. It came up with thrush. I looked up thrush, and it was some sort of yeast infection of the mouth. So I'm going to fast forward to the household examination for Nils after he had gotten married and had some children. We'll see that he was living in Fanthagen, which is the place name inside Vanga, and it gives his name, his birth date, the place he was born, and the year he was born. Gives his wife's name and the year she was born, and she was also born in Vanga, and it lists 5 children, all born in Vanga. You go over to the other half of the book, and for the migration, they left for America on the 23rd of March in 1881, and they're listed as certificate number 11 in the outgoing book. So now we go over to the migration records. We find the 1881 book, open that up, and you want to make sure you find the one that starts with the UT. UT means outgoing. The IN means the incoming. It's important when you're looking for whether they came in or they left. So I go to the page for 1881, and I scroll down, and I find the family on line 11. It says that they left on the 23rd of March, 1881. They came, they're listed in the household examination booklet on page 544. So this way you can reverse engineer it. And it gives his name, Monson Nils Johan. And I believe this says his wife and children. They came from Fanthagen, and they were leaving for America with 4 males and 3 females. Now, I designed some forms that helped me with my research, and you're all welcome to have them. I hope they're useful for you. I'll explain them a little bit. The first one is the Swedish records timeline. All it does is keep track of your ancestors from birth to death or from birth to emigration. You could also use it for any other types of records, but they're set up for the Swedish records. It keeps track of where to find the information. It lists things such as the book number and the page number. It's going to help you to duplicate your research, and it's not to be confused with citing your sources. And it will give you a snapshot of their life, and it will help you visualize the next step in your research. So I'm going to show you how to fill this out. Take a look at the top half of the page, and you fill in the names such as Johan Alfred Monson, his birth date, the place he was born, his father's name, mother's name, spouse name, marriage date, the place, his death date, where he died, and the date that you prepared this. Now you just fill in as much information as you can. Now, when I'm looking at the household examination booklets, the certain one that I'm looking for, I found him in one of them that he was listed at the certain place name between 1870 and 1873. I'll fill in the farm name, the parish, and the county, list what book you find it in, and the image and page number. And then you just keep going like that for each household examination booklet that you find. And you'll notice that it goes you'll start to see that the timeline goes every single year. Now, the Swedish household examination form is just going to give you a snapshot of the family at a certain time. This is just going to, so you can write down the information that you find on that one page in the household examination booklet. It's going to help you keep track of your research and show you where to look next. These ones are filled in. You'll fill in the parish name and the county, and then you fill in like the book name, the page number, name, birth date, place that they were living, the day they got married, the place that they got married, and any other information, and then you fill in the residence years that you're looking at, and then you would fill in the rest of the family as you find them. This would be like writing down the information from a page in a census. So let's take a look at the ArkivDigital subscriptions. They offer a few different levels, from 1 month all the way to 1 year, and then they have all-in-one. The all-in-one, I'll show you in a little bit what's the difference. But all the information that I had found, I had used the 1 month subscription. I found everything within a couple weeks. And I have Diane LaFerrier to thank for that. She pointed me in the right direction. And usually you can find free trials twice a year. This past weekend was actually the free trial, so there's going to probably be another one, another 6 months or so. They have the base subscription. You can look at all the documents in the online archives, except for the aerial photographs and the agricultural statistics. And you can also look in the population of Sweden 1950 name index. The all-in-one includes all the documents, the population of Sweden 1950 and 1960 name indexes. It also gives you the population of Sweden 1860 to 1920. You can also look up ancestors, the Swedes in the USA 1940. What it does, it will point you to the page and the information from the 1940 US Census. There's also a portrait collection from Stockholm Photography Studios, which you can find many nice photos. Hopefully some of you will be able to find pictures of ancestors. And it also gives you the birth, death, marriage indexes between 1666 and 1894 for Västra Södermanland, which is the only one that has the indexes. So thank you very much. I hope I wet your whistle on this a little bit, and good luck with your research, and we'll take some questions.
Michael, thank you very much. I see there's already one question, but this is the time if anyone else has some others. First question is, what is the time frame for the estate records? For example, how long after the death is it recorded?
It depends. I found a couple of mine within a month, but they're all in chronological order, and you have to do a little bit of research. But knowing the parish, you can find them fairly easily.
Okay. Here is another kudo, I guess. I have no direct Swedish ancestors, but this inspires me to research 2 fourth-grade uncles of mine who married 2 sisters of my 3rd great-grandfather. So
very nice.
And Diane LaFerrier says, great job.
Well, she's my inspiration.
Okay, let me see. Any other questions? Actually, you make it sound so easy, and I know that genealogy isn't. So I know there has to be digging in what you did, Michael.
Well, like I said, believe it or not, I had the ArkivDigital used to offer a 1-week trial subscription, and I was going to do that, but I opted for the 1 month. And I sat down, and knowing where to start, I started my research back in 1881 when my ancestors left, and I had gotten all the way back to the early 1700s within 2 weeks.
Wow. Okay. Here is another question. How do you pay for the subscription? With Swedish money, or can you pay with American money with a credit card?
No, it's through. You could pay with a credit card. I just gave. I'll go back a couple slides, but these are the American prices. They're listed in Swedish krona, but these are the
okay.
You know, this is the American money.
The next question. You said you don't need to know Swedish, but do you recommend any Swedish classes online or ones that meet so you can practice Swedish?
I've actually been using Babbel and Duolingo. They're two apps that you can use on your phone, and it teaches you a little bit of Swedish. But you really don't know. You don't really need to know Swedish. You'll start seeing some of the more common words and be able to go from there.
Well, I'm waiting. I don't see any more questions. I think you've done a great job. Thank you so much, Michael. To our attendees, Massag appreciates your attendance today. You'll receive a quick survey of just 5 questions as you leave the webinar. Actually, no, I just got another question on here, so I'm going to stop my end spiel and go back to this. Do you get access to court records on ArkivDigital?
I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, something that we can look into. For attendees, we hope you'll fill in the quick survey of just 5 questions as you leave. Please help us, as this helps us build our program and aid speaker with their presentations. Next month, our topic will be a recipe for writing family history with Devin Lee on February 27th. And before I go on, I just want to tell you that we've already gotten a request for you to do another presentation on ArkivDigital sometime in the future. So a huge thank you to our speaker, Michael McClellan. We look forward to seeing all of you again next month. Have a nice evening.